Today, I'm going to give you 7 ways to increase your retirement readiness, even if you already have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement. Up first, number 1, increase your savings. Now, this sounds trite. I get it. You already have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement. So what I'm talking about is maybe in the last 5 to 10 years of your career, you're probably in your peak earnings. You're probably making more money than you've ever made in your entire life. And I have found that a lot of times this is when we start to go through people's cash flow, there might be like a slush fund approach to how much money you're making and where it's all going. You will want to go through your expenses with a fine-tooth comb to understand what are the essential expenses that I have and what are the discretionary expenses that I have. Now, in addition to just understanding like how much it costs to run your household on a month-to-month basis, you will want to know that breakdown between essential and discretionary because it's going to help us figure out what are the levers that we can maybe pull in the future if, for example, your portfolio's down while the market's down and you're thinking, how can I take a little stress off from my portfolio while allowing it time to recover before I resume the normal amount of distributions that I'm taking out of my portfolio? So to do that, we need to know, we need, $4,000 a month for just like the bare minimum. Like that just keeps the lights on. But an additional $3,000 on top of that is all of the other discretionary stuff that, maybe we don't need that trip this month, or perhaps we could eat in a little bit more, things like that. Okay, so that's going to fall into that discretionary bucket. And that's going to be our first thing that we would turn to and say, can we dial this back a little bit while we allow our portfolio to recover? So knowing that distinction will be crucial to your success and the longevity of your portfolio in retirement. Once you do that exercise of understanding your expenses, you can maybe then be a little more intentional with your money as you get into the 5-ish years prior to retirement, where you have maybe a little bit more money month to month than you need to cover your expenses, even after you've saved. And instead of it just going into this kind of like nebulous pot of like not knowing where it is or what it's doing, we can start to do some really intentional things with it to boost your retirement readiness, like maybe fully maxing out a 401k if you haven't already. Or if you already have, perhaps we could utilize a mega backdoor Roth option inside of your 401k to make good use of the extra dollars that you have on a month-to-month basis. So increasing savings, even though you already have $2 to $5 million, may still be possible. Up next, number 2, cut expenses. That's kind of the other side of the coin of increasing your savings is now cutting expenses. So now that you've done the exercise to go through your expenses with a fine-tooth comb, you may have found some things that aren't just a good fit. They're not aligned with how you want to spend money, how you want to use money going forward. So this is a great opportunity for you to just say, you know what? I don't need this extra streaming service, or I'm just going to cut this expense because I don't need this in my life anymore. As we make our kind of final descent towards retirement, and developing a retirement income paycheck from the assets that you've saved and turning it into a paycheck, we need to know your expenses. And then also, this is a really fruitful exercise because it helps people figure out, you know what, I can cut back on this without putting a dent in my lifestyle. Cutting expenses can help. And one of the greatest influences on the longevity of your portfolio will be the amount that you're taking out of that portfolio. So the smaller you can make that number, the more runway that your portfolio will have, not only for you, but anybody that you care about, causes or family members that you'd like to leave the money to behind when you're gone. Okay. Up next, number 3. This one comes with a little asterisk, working longer. So you can obviously plan to work longer till the cows come home. You can say that you want to work until your mid-70s, all you want. But we find that people don't get to make that decision on their own very often. In fact, most of the time, the health of a loved one or their own health forces their hand, and they actually have to retire much sooner than they had hoped or planned to. You may be sitting there thinking to yourself, Brendan, I already have $2 to $5 billion. I'm not worried about like whether I have to retire at 70 or 67 or 73. The decision is mine. And that is absolutely the right approach. Okay, if you have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement, we should be able to put together a great retirement income for you without you running out of money and hopefully leaving money behind to people or causes, organizations that you care about. So The thing is that all of the great habits that allowed you to build the wealth that you have today, the $2 to $5 million that you have saved for retirement, they are really hard to turn off if they've been running full throttle for 3 or 4 decades. So if you've been a really diligent saver and investor for a couple decades, you're going to have a tough time adjusting to retirement and all of a sudden taking money out of the portfolio. And you could also be suffering from this like more-itis, where you just feel like I have to keep working because, I see the balance, but it doesn't resonate with me. I can't believe that I'm going to turn this into a paycheck and I'll have to live on this for the rest of my life. So you could be thinking to yourself, I just have to keep working. I need more. And I have found through the great planning that we do for people who are getting ready for retirement is that we can actually help you retire maybe sooner than you had hoped and give you more money through great tax planning. The earlier you retire, the more opportunity we may have to do some great tax planning to reduce your lifetime tax bill and keep more money in your pocket by being just a little more strategic about it than what happens if you continue working and we have a shorter window before you start Social Security at 70 or before RMDs kick in at 73 or 75, depending on your age. So we have tools in the toolbox as long as you can come to terms with the fact that maybe it's time for you to retire and that you may not get to make that decision on your own, at least perfectly. So that's number 3. Tread carefully with just assuming that you can work longer. Number 4, you can plan to defer Social Security. Now, you've probably heard that this is good, and it is. For most people, especially if you already have $2 to $5 million, people who generally have more money are generally in better health. Not without exceptions, of course, but they usually have the means to take better care of themselves, and they are often going to live longer. So what that means is that we will need more money, since you'll be around for longer. Yay! But also, we need more money. So we want to get the benefit that you'll receive from Social Security as high as we possibly can by delaying that probably until 70 years of age when it doesn't go up anymore through the additional delaying of Social Security. Social Security, an important note about this, is the best inflation-adjusted annuity that you can buy. Okay, you've been buying it your whole life when you were paying payroll taxes into Social Security when you were working. So you have now bought this annuity that is not available through any insurance company or annuity company out there. They cannot replicate the lifetime inflation adjustments that Social Security offers. It is the best annuity out there when it comes to matching the increases in what it costs to pay your bills. So the benefit to delaying Social Security is magnified for people who are already ready for retirement with $2 to $5 million saved. So they have this opportunity to pull from the portfolio without worrying so much about jeopardizing it as they allow the Social Security benefit to continue baking until they're 70 years old. There's lots of ifs, ands, and buts about that based on your unique health history a lot of times and just generally family situation. I'd be happy to walk you through the ins and outs of that for your situation if you want to get in touch with me, but there is going to be a link to a free retirement income style assessment that is in this video description that I'll describe again later in the video. But just so you know, there's all different kinds of ways to structure a retirement income. And I am agnostic when it comes to which one is right for my clients. I want what's best and most comfortable for you and what's going to work for you. So when I'm designing a retirement income for somebody, what I'm presenting to them to be consistent with how they feel about certain things. So this retirement income assessment that I have this link to that's free will uncover what you want from the way that you get paid in retirement, how we'll go about turning your assets into a paycheck. Okay, so more on that a little bit later. Number 5, ways to increase your retirement readiness. Even though you already have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement, you could increase your investment returns. What this means is we would just dial up the risk that you have associated with your investments. Now, I don't think this is a good idea for most people. Okay, you've already got $2 to $5 million saved for retirement. So what that means is that you've won the game. All right, if you have $2 to $5 million, we should be able to put together a great retirement income for you without you running out of money and probably without taking on unnecessary investment risk. So with that said, why go literally risking your portfolio by dialing up how much you have, say, allocated to stocks when we may not need to take that much risk to fund your lifestyle for the rest of your life and still meet your goals, still maybe leave money behind with the people or organizations that you care about. Just be careful before you go increasing your investment risk. for the sake of making more money. Number 6, reduce taxes. I alluded to this a little bit earlier in the video, but tax planning for people who have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement is a tremendous opportunity. It is often worth multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, when done correctly over a series of years. So what that means is you will pay tax on all of the accounts that you have that are pre-tax or what we call traditional in nature. So the traditional IRA, traditional 401k, they are a partnership that you currently have with the IRS that you probably haven't really had to recognize yet, because if you're younger, you haven't retired yet, you're not RMD age, require minimum distribution, that is, you haven't had to take money out and you haven't had to pay tax yet. So when you were working, you made contributions to those accounts that were on a pre-tax basis, and the IRS blessed that and said, yeah, great, sounds good. You reduced your taxable income in the year that you made those contributions, and then you invested it, and hopefully that money that you contributed grew with the investment performance. Today, whatever they're worth, they're probably worth more with any kind of positive investment performance. So your tax bill on the eventual distribution of those funds will also be larger now. That is something that is not entirely up to the IRS. They say that you have to start taking distributions based on your age, either 73 or 75. Why would we wait that long though? We could actually get started on taking those distributions maybe a little bit earlier, and you could think of it as taking our medicine, where we are going to actually get out in front of these required minimum distributions and start to maybe proactively pay our tax bill a little bit sooner. And what that does is it actually drastically lowers the amount of lifetime tax that we end up paying. So this is where I was describing where we might actually be able to get you to retire sooner and keep more money in your pocket by great tax planning. Finally, number 7, you could turn to your home equity. A lot of people think of this as only utilizing reverse mortgages, but you can think of this as actually kind of a way to take a little heat, a little stress, a little pressure off of your portfolio in the midst of a market decline. So let's say the market comes along and it drops significantly, 10, 20, 30%. And if you're a retired investor, your anxiety about that, you'll notice, is probably going to be more than it ever was when you were working. Because when you were working, you weren't relying on the portfolio to fund your lifestyle, to pay all your bills. You had a job to do that. But once you're retired, it can really amplify how much focus and anxiety you might have about how much is in your portfolio, even day to day. So it can be really upsetting to watch a significant decline come along and hopefully temporarily wipe out some of your nest egg. We know from research that bad markets just prior to and just after retirement significantly increase the likelihood that you will run out of money. Okay, so the way you're invested today probably shouldn't be the way that you're invested just prior to retirement or just after. It may be the same approach if you have an appropriate allocation today for those 5 years before retirement, 5 years after retirement, but we should at least explore that. So going back to the use of home equity to address this risk, you can utilize the home equity for retirement income. Yes, that's what a reverse mortgage does. It sends you paychecks essentially from the equity that you have in your home. But even if we don't go all the way down the spectrum to utilizing a reverse mortgage, we could still use our home equity through, say, a home equity line of credit. And what that does is we could tap that home equity line of credit. We could take money and draw against the line of credit while the market's down, give our portfolio a fighting chance to recover and grow again. And then when it does come back, it does rebound, we can resume our normal distributions from our portfolio and eventually pay off the line of credit. So it allows your portfolio some breathing room and additional time to recover, because one of the ways that we see people will start to run out of money in retirement when they do experience those bad markets just prior to or just after retirement is when they start to take those distributions from the retirement as the market's down. That's just digging a hole in your portfolio that is really hard for the market returns to climb out of. So once you've started to take withdrawals after the market is already down, it can be really hard for your portfolio to dig itself out of that hole. That's where we start to see that people may jeopardize the longevity of their portfolio and may actually run out of money if they get that bad timing. So that's why it's so important to be prudent about the way you're invested just prior to and just after retirement, with about 5 years on either side. So home equity can be a great way. You get that set up in advance, and then that way you can be prepared for some of these kind of what if scenarios that could be pretty dire if they do come along and impact your retirement. And if you are interested in turning your assets that you have into a paycheck, you'll need to understand how the different approaches will serve you. There are lots of different ways to create a retirement income for yourself. I, again, am agnostic about how to do that as long as it works and we're not going to run out of money. I offer to you is a free retirement income style assessment that will help you uncover what kind of retirement paycheck you might like to have. Once you complete that, I'll go through the results for you with a brief recording, send it to you for you to review, and then you can better understand what kind of approach may make the most sense for you. And then you can start to see the ins and outs of that approach and decide if it's actually something that you might like to pursue as you approach this kind of 5-year prior to retirement timeline when it makes sense to start making some strategic decisions about your retirement. As always, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment if anything stuck out to you, or if you'd like to hear more about anything that I shared today, please leave a comment. I'll do my best to respond. As always, I'm here to help. My name is Brendan Dooley. I'm a certified financial planner practitioner and a retirement income planner, and I specialize in helping people turn their assets into a paycheck, pay less in taxes over the rest of their life, and align their wealth with their values. See you next time.